So 6.7b, elementary algebra, still doing applications or story problems. And I said we're going to start with the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem is one of those theorems that you look at and you learn and don't even realize it, but those people, everybody that builds houses or builds any kind of a building must use the Pythagorean theorem. Have you ever thought that if you're going to build a house and your walls, you want all of your walls to be 90-degree angle. You want them to be right angles with each other, okay? That just makes, it's called making it square. You want each one of your walls to be square. You don't want one wall to be this way and one to be this way. You know, at least most people don't. So you use the Pythagorean theorem, whether you know it or not, or all contractors or people that build. I'm building a cabin out on the island that we live on, just a guest cabin, and I use Pythagorean. Obviously, I'm a math geek, but you use Pythagorean theorem in order to make sure that these are square. Okay, some people call it, some people that are in contracting call it the 3, 4, 5 method. And we'll get into that, but some people call it that, but it's actually the Pythagorean theorem. And what the Pythagorean theorem says is if we have a triangle, okay, and the longest side, called the hypotenuse, is always labeled with a C. And the other two sides are A and B. It doesn't matter which one's A and which one's B. But Pythagorean theorem says that if we take the length of A and we square it, and we take the length of B and we square it, we'll get the length of C squared. So for example, if A is 3, B is 4, we should get C squared. We should be able to find out what the length of the hypotenuse is based on that. So 9 plus 16 equals 25. So 25 equals C squared. Well, what two numbers do we have to multiply together to get 25? 5. So if this is 3, this is 4, then the length of this one is going to be 5. Okay, and that's where they get the idea of the 3, 4, 5 method. And that only works when this angle right here, the one across from C, is a 90-degree angle. It's the only time it works. So, let's look at some fun stuff, right? Okay, so let's get a triangle here. And example 5 says, 3 sides of a right triangle, so we've got right triangle, are 3 consecutive integers. Okay, so if one integer is x consecutive, that means the next one has to be x plus 1, right? Because 6, the next number is 7. So what did I do? I took 6 plus 1 to get that. How do we get the next one? 6 plus 2. So this one's going to be x plus 2. Okay? So those are my 3 consecutive integers, and those are the lengths of my sides. Alright, so if I follow the Pythagorean theorem, which remember was a length plus another length squared equals the hypotenuse or the longest length squared. Alright, so let's look at this. So we're going to take one of those plus the other one. I'm going to put in parentheses because I'm squaring the whole thing, equals the hypotenuse. So you have to do the FOIL method here. I'm just doing the FOIL method in my head, sorry. Okay? Now, we start combining things. I'm going to combine those. And we can't really combine anything else on either side of there, can we? So, the next step is I want this side to equal 0. So I'm going to take all of this and move it over. So I'm going to subtract x squared. Usually I do this all at once, but I'm just going to do it one bit at a time. I'm going to subtract 4x, so that one's going to go away. And we put it on the other side. And then we're going to subtract this 4 from both sides. Okay, now let's see if I can move all this junk up here. Yes, I can. So, this is going to give me 1x squared. That and that's going to give me minus 2x. Plus 1 and minus 4 is minus 3 equals 0. Do this handy dandy little thing here, and I've got an x and an x. Two numbers multiplied together give me 3. That's just 3 and 1. And added together give me a negative 2. So that means x equals 3 or x equals negative 1. And if you remember, a length cannot be negative. Because remember, let's go back to our triangle up here. Get some of this out of the way. One side of our triangle was x. And if we found out that x is negative 1, that means that length would be negative 1. So we get rid of this one. We're not going to use that. We're just going to use x equals 3, which means this one is going to be 4, and this one is going to be 5. So again, we've got the 3, 4, 5. All right, let's look at example 6 here. And it says the hypotenuse of a right triangle is 13 inches. Okay, I guess I don't know that's x yet. All right, 13. One leg, okay, so one of the sides is 7 inches longer than the other one. So if we call one side 7, the other one's 7 inches longer. So we know one is x, one is the length of x plus 7, and the other one is 13 because they gave it to us. They want us to find this length and this length. So we have to find x to find this one, and then we add 7 to x to find that one. So that's what we're looking for. All right. So Pythagorean says that we take 2 of the sides, or 2 of the legs, and that equals the hypotenuse squared. So what is one of the legs? One of them is x, the other one is, in parentheses, x plus 7, and the other one is c squared, or 13 squared, which is 169. Okay, because this is the length of c. It isn't the length of c squared, it's the length of c. So we take 13 times 13, and we get c squared there. All right, so let's go ahead and do FOIL. So are you seeing how I do these in my head? That here. I square that, double that, and then square the 7. So it works pretty easy. It only works when there's no number in front of the x. But this is the case, so it makes it pretty easy. So let's combine things. All right. So first thing, we're going to take a 2 out. Okay, so that makes it a little bit easier to work with. 2 numbers multiplied together give me negative 60. Added give me 7. Let's see. 15 and 4. 12 and 5. 12 and 5. That works. Okay, so I need to get a negative 60. So one of these has to be negative. So positive 12 minus 5 is positive 7, my middle term. And 12 times negative 5 is negative 60. So x equals negative 12, or x equals 5. Okay, so we run into the same thing again. We can't use negative 12 because it never works for the length, so that goes away. So I've got my triangle, and x is 5. The other length is 5 plus 7, x plus 7, and then the other length is 13. So it's actually kind of an odd shape. It'll be a kind of a weird shaped triangle, but it'll still be a triangle. Alright, so got 2 more to go, and then we'll be done with this lesson. So example 7 isn't as complicated as what it might first appear, because they give you a formula. When they give you a formula, life is good. You don't have to come up with the formula yourself. So there's the formula, and they say how many items were manufactured if the total cost, C, is 900. So all I'm going to do is put a 900 in there. And write lots of big numbers here. Alright, so that being the case, one of the things I can do is, well, let's set this whole thing equal to 0. Let's move this 900 over here. Get rid of that. Just put it on the other side. Alright, what can we factor out? Well, let's make it all equal to 0. Let's put everything in the right order. So we've got the x squared first, plus 500, x plus 300 equals 900. Okay, so we're going to subtract 900 from both sides to make that the right-hand side 0. And that gives me... Please don't get in a hurry and skip steps. Equals 0. Alright, so what am I going to factor out of here? I'm going to take a whole negative 100 out of there. And then the signs all change. Oops, that's an X there. Okay, that one looks a lot more doable. And this is all we care about. We really don't care about that. Now we're going to make 2 binomials. So we have an X and an X. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 3 plus negative 2 gives me a negative 5. Negative 3 times negative 2 is a positive 6. So my x equals 3 and 2. Okay? So, our solutions are 2 and 3. That means the company can manufacture 200 items or 300 items, and the cost would be $900. Because that's what we were looking for. How many items can we manufacture for $900? Okay, and it says you can manufacture 200 or 300 for a total cost of $900. Now, how can you do both of those? Well, it's a story problem with that formula, so there's probably other things involved. But anyway, they're just getting you used to practicing with these quadratic equations. Remember, quadratic equations are equations that have an exponent of 2. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here and go start explaining some of the homework assignments. I'm not going to do example 8. Example 8 gets a little bit hairy. So in this next video, I'll just do some of the homework.